They're here, they're trying to destroy us.
Do not adjust your screen. If this video has found you, you're one of the chosen. Be warned, these are all true accounts of the weird, macabre, and eerie. Welcome to the transmission. Welcome to Eerie Files. Do you believe? Her favorite ghost. In my early 20s, I was a musician living just outside of Los Angeles. My band at the time played everywhere from small bar gigs to legendary venues. It was one of the best times of my life, but this night proved that we were never alone in the dark. One day, after band practice, my guitar player Brian said he was going to be house sitting in the home he essentially grew up in. He invited me and one of our friends, Spike, to come and hang out. All of our day jobs have been pretty daunting lately, and Brian and I had been so busy with the band that a fun, chill night was definitely needed. We grabbed a few 6-packs of beer, a couple packs of cigarettes, and headed over to the house. The 2-story house was on a few acres in a really upscale neighborhood. We definitely looked out of place here. Regardless, it was nice to pretend what life could be like one day if the band got signed. It was now around 9 p.m., and a couple more friends ended showing up. Nothing too wild. We were all just hanging out, trading funny stories, when Brian mentioned something interesting about this house. Now, I already knew what he was about to say, but being there and hearing him talk about it at the same time made me uncomfortable. Brian's mom had died in their first home when he was just a kid. Shortly after her passing, he and his sister said that the ghost of their mother started visiting them frequently, mostly at night. The family eventually needed a fresh start and moved to the house we were hanging out in now. His mom followed. Through the years, multiple people had reported seeing her ghost. She was seen most often slowly walking by the upstairs den that overlooked the living room, the same living room Brian was telling the story in now. Objects would also move or be thrown, and footsteps were frequently heard all throughout the home. Her spirit wasn't malicious in any way, but a ghost is a ghost. After Brian told this story, there was an uneasiness that was impossible to deny. People started making up excuses to leave. Everyone but Brian, Spike, and me. Spike was insistent that if this place really was haunted, he had to find out for himself. I was more than reluctant to participate in whatever ideas he had, but fear suddenly turned to adrenaline, and I was in. We turned off all the lights and sat next to each other on the small 3-person couch, the one with the view below the haunted den. There was a coffee table 5 inches in front of us, with large candles and a fancy metal candle holder on it. Even though it would have added to the atmosphere, we decided not to light them, so the room was as dark as possible. The moonlight and streetlights dimly highlighted parts of the living room instead. Geometric shapes formed by the panels in the windows projected in front of us as well, but the room was still relatively dark. To the left was a door frame that led to the next room. As we sat nervously on the couch, all the normal noises were more prominent. The ticks of the clock and the creaks in the foundation echoed heavily. It was as if the stillness turned inanimate objects into an orchestra of sounds. Either out of bravery or nervousness, Spike decided to yell out, "Well, if something's here, show yourself already!" I wasn't pleased with this at all. Not 30 seconds later, a dark shape walked past the doorframe. My heart pounded, desperate to escape. What or who was that? It was at that moment that something happened to me that's never happened before or since. I had a vision of who this shape looked like. It was as if just for a moment, the shape pulled back the shadow to show me its human form. Then just as the shadow disappeared, "Did you see that?" frantically sang from Spike and Brian, breaking me from my so-called trance. We sat in silence, my heart still punching my chest, trying to escape even more than ever now. All of a sudden, any light that was once in front of me retreated. It was then that I could feel something leaning over, right in front of my face. Petrified doesn't do the feeling justice. This is what true fear felt like. This dark shape was studying me, it seemed. I couldn't scream. For that brief moment, it had me. I don't remember if I demanded the lights to be turned on at this point, but when the lights got turned back on, there was no one there. However, the large candles and the fancy metal candle holder were now on their side, facing us, directly in front of me. The candle still perfectly intact. This wasn't something flimsy that could easily be knocked over, and even if it was, it would have caused a huge crashing noise, but nothing. No noise. Shaken, I managed to mutter, "I saw him, but I didn't see him." As I described the man, all the color in Brian's face vanished. He has seen ghosts for most of his life, so the ghastly look on his face was more than alarming. He told me to follow him to the garage. We walked down the hallway, my legs barely working due to the terror I had just experienced. He dug through a tattered, unmarked box and pulled out a single photo. His hand reluctantly turned the photo towards me. In a shaken voice, "Is this who you saw?" he asked, almost as if he already knew the answer. As I stared into this photo, for a brief moment, everything else just disappeared. It was like I was back in that living room with that same face, staring back at me. "That's him," I faintly proclaimed. It wasn't even a maybe. It was him. Exactly who I saw. Brian then said something that gave us all the chills. He said he was my mom's favorite uncle that just passed away a few days ago. I never went back to that house, but I can still see his face, just like I did 20 years ago. Have you had a true paranormal experience? Submit your stories to Eerie Files. Submit@gmail.com. Maybe next time, the story will be yours. Like and subscribe, and follow us for more.